Where does Moses fit in? Hi everyone, this is R.A. Sweeney. Welcome back to Wordplay in the Word. As I promised last week, I want to dig a little bit more into Moses' name and how that plays into the story a little bit. So last week we looked at Moses' name as it is translated into Hebrew, as he draws out. This week I want to look at actually the Egyptian side of his name, which I think is really appropriate. In the story, or the verse where he's named, we're told that Pharaoh's daughter, who's an Egyptian, names him, but she names him a Hebrew name. We know that she's thinking of the Hebrew because it says, because I drew him out, which is what the Hebrew root word means. And so that fits, and I think we're definitely meant to see that. But she's an Egyptian, and they're in Egypt, and there's a very, very common way that Moshe gets used in Egyptian as well, and so I think we're supposed to see both. So in Egyptian, the word Moshe means something along the lines of my father is, or I am the son of, or something like that. So you'd see pharaohs and stuff would say, I'm the son of this deity, usually Ra or something like that. And they would use that word Moshe. So Moshe appears in pharaohs' names all over the place because they're trying to say my dad is this deity. And so it's really interesting because up to this point in the story, you see that a Levite man took a Levite wife and they had a son. And you don't see names of either of them. Pharaoh is not a name, it is a title. The daughter of Pharaoh doesn't get named. Nobody is getting named here. So if I were to ask you, unless you're a really big Bible nerd, what's the name of the Levite man? You probably don't know. It does say in there, I can't even think of it off the top of my head. It's Amram or something like that. But it does mention it in, I think, Chronicles. Later on in the Bible, it does mention the name of the dad. We don't know the Pharaoh's name. You can't tell me who Moses' dad is in this story by name, which I think is important. And even it's Pharaoh's daughter that's raising him, so she either doesn't have a husband or he doesn't get mentioned in here. So you're kind of left with that question. When you look at it, if you speak Egyptian, you're like, my father is who? And that's how the beginning of the story of Moses really develops, because he is born by Hebrews and he is adopted by Egyptians, and then he is nursed by Hebrews, but then raised by Egyptians. And then we've got that famous scene where he goes out to see his brothers in the field. And even there, the language is a little bit ambiguous. It really seems like he's going to see the Hebrews, that he's going to see the Hebrew brothers, but it doesn't say specifically that's who he's going to see. Who he runs into is a Hebrew and an Egyptian. And I think you're supposed to be like, well, which one are we talking about here? And you still don't know. My father is who? Which is my family? And then he kills the Egyptian. And you're like, okay, he's siding with the Hebrews. But then the very next day, the Hebrews are like, we're not okay with you. We don't like you. You're not one of us. So he's rejected by the Hebrews. And then he's like, oh no, everybody knows. And then Pharaoh wants to kill him. He's like, oh no, the Egyptians won't have me either. And so he belongs to both worlds. He's rejected by both worlds. And so that's kind of interesting. And then he runs off to Midian and he marries into the Midianites. And now it's like, okay, well, are you a Midianite? Are you an Egyptian? Are you a Hebrew? And all of that is just swirling around in this big picture. He never mentions his name to the Midianites in the story of him going and meeting the daughters. Normally you see at these, the man meeting a woman at a well in a distant country is, meeting his wife sort of trope. And he always reveals who he is. He doesn't reveal who he is. She says he's an Egyptian. She thinks he looks Egyptian, which he probably did. But he's also the whole thing is just building all this tension of who are you? Until you get to the burning bush scene. And so Moses goes up on the mountain, he meets with God, and God tells him, here's what's going to happen, how all this is going to go. This is your identity. You're one of the Hebrews. I am telling you that's what your identity should be. And it really kind of solidifies all of it. But then you've got that weird scene right afterward where he goes down and he packs up and he's heading back to Egypt to go do what God said. And the angel of the Lord comes and it says the angel of the Lord wants to kill him. And you're like, why? And then, even weirder, his wife circumcises their sons, and exactly what she does with it is up for debate. A lot of different scholars have a lot of ideas, but she does something with the foreskins and the blood to like consecrate him or something like that. But it's identifying him of, okay, now you are one of the Hebrews, because circumcision is the mark of being a part of God's people. It is the physical sign in your body that I identify with the story of Abraham. And so in that moment, God is saying, like, I've told you to be a Hebrew. I've told you to go identify with them and be a part of that. But you're going back. Maybe you're uncircumcised. That's iffy. But your sons are uncircumcised. Like, if you're going to do this, I'm giving you this point where you need to pick. Like, death is coming to Egypt. And so if you want to identify with Egypt, I can just kill you now on the road and save us all some trouble. But I'm trying to get you to ironically draw out, which is the Hebrew meaning of his name, the Hebrews from Egypt. So if you want to identify with them, you can find escape. And so it's this little Passover moment of like, you can choose which one you want to be, but we're not going to do this my father is who business anymore. Like, we're settling this once and for all right now. Identify with the Hebrews, identify with the Egyptians. It's your call, but we're going to settle it right now. And so it's really cool how that develops throughout the story, and this idea of identity and, being adopted into different families and then choosing, where you're going to seek refuge and all of those sorts of things, I feel like is really, really interesting and also really, really important in how the story plays out. So interesting wordplay with how Moses' name gets used both in the Hebrew and in the Egyptian, because obviously they're overlapped and playing out at the same time. But I just think that's interesting. So if you really like this wordplay, these wordplay series that we're doing, feel free to subscribe or like down below. That way you keep seeing what comes up with new wordplay in the future. It also helps other people find it, so please like and subscribe below. If you have other things that you'd like me to discuss, things that you're like, I don't get why this is phrased this way, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you guys, and maybe we can address some of your questions in future episodes. But for now, that's all I have for Wordplay in the Word. Hope it was a blessing. Thanks.